Hello, hello. Okay, so for last week's office hours, Pat actually asked a really good question. She hasn't done the switch over to Google Analytics 4 yet. And she was asking if I have any tips, and I said that I would rather record a video. I have already switched over all of my actual sites, like everything that is live. So I had to dig around, old Google accounts for old projects to find something that hasn't been switched to Google Analytics 4 so that I can do this video to show you the actual process. And then I also want to share a couple of things to do with Google Analytics 4 and how it works, because things have kind of moved a little bit, and the way that events are counted aren't quite the same anymore. So there's going to be some data that you will see in your Universal Analytics account that actually now no longer gets displayed in Google Analytics 4. So it is a little bit different. So if you haven't switched over yet, you will know that because you'll have a warning up here that this has stopped processing data, and you have to set up a GA4 property to be able to continue tracking. So all you realistically need to do is to press this button up here, and it's going to talk you through what's happening. So basically it says you're currently using a Universal Analytics property. You have to set up a GA4 property below, and then everything is going to be in the new property. So you have the option to create a new Google Analytics 4 property if you haven't got one yet for your website. If you haven't actually logged into Analytics and actively set up a new Google Analytics 4 account, then this is the option that you're going to want to choose. You can connect an existing Google Analytics 4 property if you've already done it. And then you have the option to have a property created that mostly aligns with what you have set up in this Universal Analytics account. So if you have, for example, an e-commerce site and you have had a lot of custom tracking set up in Universal Analytics, you're going to want to select this option. But for most people, it's not really necessary. So you just go up here and you press Get Started. So we have to, or the assistant will help you to create a GA4 property. It will copy basic settings and remarketing configuration, blah, blah, blah. And the setup assistant can also enable data collection using existing analytics tags. So we can actually tick this box over here and we can hit create property. Okay, so now it has actually created the new property for you. So this is the name of the property and this is the property ID, and it is connected to your old account, right? And now you have the option to go to your GA4 property. So if we go up here now, right now it only has the Universal Analytics property in this account. We will say go to your GA4 property, and then it's going to give you a warning that this property setup is not complete, okay? So we have the option to complete setup, which will actually just take you back to this setup assistant. Now, the weird thing is, in my own analytics account for my websites, I have completed all of the setup steps and everything is working. However, I still every day get this error message displayed and it's not going away. So if that happens to you, you're in the same boat as me. I have reached out to support about that, but I haven't really gotten an answer. They just said I should go to the setup assistant and connect all the, complete all the steps. But I have 7 out of 7 marked as complete. So obviously something doesn't seem to be working right. So Google Analytics 4 is going to present you with this checklist. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is that you need to collect your website and app data. So we're going to go there. click on the arrow, and we can say manage data streams. This is going to take you to the property settings, specifically the data streams. So this is all of the sources from which your Google Analytics account will end up receiving data. So you have multiple menu items, all iOS, Android, or web. So obviously this used to be a website that's no longer in operation for years on end. So this is obviously a web property. And here it will tell you the Google Analytics measurement ID. It will also tell you if enhanced measurement is enabled. You're going to want to customize this. So I want to know page views, that's the default, but I don't just want to know page views. I also want to know when people get to the bottom of the page. I want to know outbound clicks. I want to know when people use the site search. I want to know when people interact with my forums. I want to know when they watch my videos, and I want to know when they download files. So to me, all of that is relevant. So I'm actually going to enable all of them. Then down here, you have the option to modify your events. This is something that I'll be covering extensively in the upcoming course that's going to come at the end of December, because this is a bit complicated. You can also create custom events. Again, this is something for the course. If you don't currently have any of these set up in your old account, then you don't really need to worry about this. And then, the other one's not that important. Now down here, you want to go to configure tag settings. And here, basically, you have your Google tag. Now, you can go and view your installation instructions, and you can select your platform, or you can actually just click install manually, and you will be provided with this piece of code, and it has your Google ID, like your website stream ID right here. You can copy this, and then I can actually show you that. So I use Divi as a theme, and in Divi's theme options under integrations, you actually have code that you can add to the head of your website. And this is where you can actually just copy and paste your tracking code into. Another option that you have, and that's the option that I used, is to use Google Tag Manager to install your code. Again, this is something that I'll be covering in the course way more extensively, because Google Tag Manager has a lot more tracking capacities. So if you want to know more about how people are using your websites, which buttons they're using, which buttons they're not using, it's super easy to do that with Google Tag Manager. And it's not so easy to try and, get that information by adding 50 different parameters to all of your URLs to know where the source of that click actually was. So you can just click install manually, copy this, go into your WordPress, and then paste it into the code of your head section of your website. If you have a Google Analytics plugin running on your website, then you can also use that to connect. Or there are other options, like, I don't have it installed because I obviously use this, but there's a plugin called Insert Headers and Footers for WordPress, so you could use that as well. And then obviously you want to go here and you want to click test, and you want this to come back with a green light to let you know that it's receiving data on website traffic. This website's obviously not been live for years, so I can't show you that. Then also, if you are using a separate course platform, like I have my programs on Podia, I also have my Google Analytics code installed on Podia, so that when somebody goes to courses.mywebsite.com and they start the checkout process, or they complete the checkout process, Podia automatically sends the data back to Google Analytics, so I can see that somebody, for example, looked at 2 blog posts and then signed up for my free training on the same topic. So that is super useful, and you might have to configure your domains if you use that. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Once this is configured, it will tell you that you have one connected tag, and it will also tell you that it's received data. Obviously, as I said, I can't show you that because I don't have this website anymore and haven't for years. So this will continue to say no data received for me because there is no data to be received. Okay, so that was the data streams. So you want to come back up here to set up assistant after you've done that. And then you can basically mark this as complete. And it will still tell you data not flowing, so it's not working. Then you can set up Google signals. Again, the majority of you won't need to worry about this. This is to do specifically with app tracking and Google Ads. And then you also have the option to link your Google Ads account. Again, if you're not running Google Ads, then you can just go and you can mark these as complete. And if you're going to be using any of this later, then you will just come back to it there and then. Okay, let's just check what's under advanced setup. Manage users. Again, if you have team members, like if someone else runs your ads or anything like that, then you can go over here and you can go add more users into your account. You can also import additional data. Again, this is when we get deep into data and what kind of data you can import, what kind of data you can't import. So this is something we'll be talking about in the course. None of you will need to link to BigQuery because you likely do not have enough data in your analytics account to be needing to do that. Again, user ID, not really necessary. So that's that. So just mark these all as complete. I have 6 out of 7 marked as complete, and I think this one is playing up. Okay, 7 out of 7 marked as complete. I'm just going to reload the page to see if this message at the top disappears. Okay, now I just have a different message. Well, here at least it seems to have worked to mark these items as complete. So that's really it. Now, there are some things that have changed. So I used to often look at acquisition. So let's compare these things side by side. Let's get out of here. Okay, so we had previously the audience information, and there was like a huge section on audience. This section is wildly smaller now, and you realistically, like, you have user attributes basically, and then it will just say demographic details and audiences, and that's really it. So out of the box, you don't really get very much useful information in here. Like, let me open my own one so you can see it with numbers in there. Reports, and then go to user attributes overview. Okay, so this is about the last 28 days. So you still get the information on users by country, and then I'll get cities and, gender, because because Google Analytics doesn't have enough data, because I don't get tens of thousands of visitors every single day. It will not provide me this information, because then if it did, I might be able to trace back individual users and know about the gender information and the interests information that Google holds about that person. Same with age. So I can't actually see that information, whereas I am allowed to see the language breakdown, which makes sense that the majority of people speak English. Some of them speak German because that's where I'm from, and then I have a few, Dutch people, digital nomads across Portugal and France, and then interestingly Slovak making it into the list. And then in the same form, I don't really get very much in the way of demographic, details. You still get the tech information, but again, on all of these screens with these pre-prepared reports, the information is way more basic out of the box than what you used to get in Universal Analytics. And that's not necessarily bad because it just keeps everything down to the minimum information that the end user that's not very familiar with reporting and data can actually understand. So that is a huge area that looks different. Wait, why are we back in here? Oh, audience. So, previously we had this all broken down like this and we had all these different options and they've kind of gone. Now, acquisition. Previously we would just go to all traffic source medium and then you would see where people have come from, like social media, Facebook. So you would have all the information in here and you could just very easily break this down. You also had aggregated information from Search Console straight in here. Now, if we go to acquisition, over here we actually just have an overview, and then we have user acquisition and traffic acquisition. So this is a very basic overview over your traffic. And then if I go into the traffic, again, by default, I just have referral, direct, organic, social, search, whatever. And I have to go actually in here and select session source medium to see where the heck these people are coming from. So it is not as simple anymore as selecting options out of the list. Same if we look at engagement. So previously, a lot of you may have been just using the overview report to get information. Now, this has completely changed. So I can go to events. If it will let me, that is. So now it will just tell me that the event page view, which is one of the standard events that we've selected when we were setting up this property, I had 2,188. User engagement, whatever that even means, like you need to look up the definition for all of them if you can't remember them, 1,500. Session start, okay, we had 812 session starts. We had 538 first visits. We had 470 form starts. That's people that start filling out a form. We had 288 start checkout, 279 form submits. So half of the people that started a form actually ended up submitting it. So this is something that seems like strange to me. So I need to check why that is. 223 purchases. So those are all things that we can see here, but this doesn't really tell us anything about anything as far as how people are using our websites. Pages and screens. So I can see what the page path was that people actually accessed, and I can see 314 views, 269 users, 1.17 view per user, average engagement time 37 seconds, and this is responsible for 1,300 events. It hasn't weirdly... okay, yeah, I guess it has the purchases, the conversions associated with the purchase confirmation page, which makes sense. But yeah, I basically can't see how many people that were on the sales page for this product actually turned into a conversion, because after that they went to the checkout cart and then the checkout purchase. So all of the people from the 198 sessions that were started, some of them bought, some of them didn't, but I can't from this list identify where the conversion has come from, because they're going to the checkout and the conversion happened on the checkout. So you see, it's not that simple now to go into Google Analytics and to basically read out data. So that's changed a lot. However, there's this tab here called Explore, and you can set up explorations, and with those you can be very specific. So for example, I wanted to know all of the people that have purchased something, where did they come from? So I basically created a segment that is called purchasers. And then in the rows, I wanted to know the source medium. And then in the columns, I have the values of views, transactions, and purchase revenue. So with that, I can basically create my own report, and it's very powerful. So I can see that for $338, there isn't actually a specific source recorded. And then I can see that some of these sales were generated from bundles. So I can see the total views. So that's basically what I can see over here. So there is a lot of options to be creating these kind of reports, but unless you understand data and what you're trying to report on, it's very easy to look at stuff that's not really relevant, or to interpret one thing being the cause of another thing when you can't really prove that that thing causes the other thing. You know, if A increases, B also increases, that just means that the two numbers are correlated. It doesn't mean that one of them causes the other to increase. So, for example, if the sales have increased and the revenue has increased, you could automatically assume that the increase in sales is responsible for the increase in revenue. But it could actually be that a very small percentage of your audience has purchased items way above your usual average order value, and that causes the bump in revenue. And it could be that 20% of your audience bought very expensive stuff, and the other 80% bought extremely cheap stuff that's way underneath your average order value. And that could skew your revenue numbers. And then you might interpret that because you had more sales, you had more revenue, but actually you could have had a very similar high revenue just with 20% of those sales. So that's why you have to be careful when you're looking at numbers and you're making decisions on your business as to should I be offering upsells more often? What is the ideal price of an upsell? Like, when do people most take the upsell? Do they take it at $9, at $19, or at $29? What products should I offer on my checkout page if you're doing e-commerce? People who bought this also like. You know, if 80% of your people that buy an iPhone also buy a charging cable, then you know on your iPhone checkout page you're going to want to have charging cable options with different lengths in the people who also bought section. But to be able to make good decisions like that, you really have to understand, what am I trying to learn from these numbers? And if you don't understand what you're trying to figure out, then looking at numbers for the sake of numbers is kind of pointless. So if you've been collecting stuff here, like the bounce rate and things like that, like you've been writing down your users, your new users, your sessions, and then your bounce rate or whatever, well, there is no more sign of bounce rate in here. So you will need to look at the data that you're collecting. And also, I encourage you to ask yourself, does this data really tell me something? And I would almost ask you, when you're thinking about data, to turn your process upside down. You first ask the really important business questions. Like, does writing blog posts, lead to more sales or more opt-ins? Yes, no. That's a question that you can answer, and then you can look at, okay, how many people have viewed which pages on the blog? Great. How many opt-ins were made on an actual opt-in box on a blog post? Because if that's 0, then you could say, okay, well, it doesn't seem to be leading to more opt-ins. But then you could also look at, maybe, did the person opt in later on? Great. Do I have a trail of user history? Okay, so they've they've looked at a lot of different blog posts, and then they went to my about page, and that's where they opted in, for example, right? So you need to look at asking really good questions about your business and about your website, and then you look for numbers to prove or disprove your various hypotheses. And that's how you can better use your data. And I think that's what Google Analytics 4 encourages you to do way more, because they're giving you so little out of the box information, So yeah, that's really it. That's how you switch to Google Analytics 4. That is what's different about it. And as I said, I am working on a deep dive into setting up the tracking in Google Analytics, setting up Google Tag Manager, and then running through various use cases of how you can figure out what's working for you in your business and what's not. And that will be coming out, I'm guessing, by the end of December. I'm going to finish the email marketing automations course first by December 15th. And then I'm going to finish up Google Analytics. And then in January, I'm going to be speaking at a summit. So I have a automations training around Zapier and Friends coming up, like a pretty solid explainer. So I'm going to be finishing that in January. And if you have any other questions like this one, just ask. Like, that's what I'm here for. Yeah. And otherwise, I hope you've survived the Black Friday weekend well. Lots of discussions around it. And I hope you have a really good week.